Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel and I hope you're having a lovely new year ahead. So today I'm going to be answering some questions that my patrons from our Patreon art club sent over. Also, it's my 30th year as a person in this world, in this thing. So I thought it'd be nice to answer some questions. So make sure to keep watching and let's get started. So first question is, how do you feel about turning 30? I don't know. It's like weird. It's also new and exciting. Every time I think of 30, I think about Gen Rank of 13 going on 30, and I recently just watched it. So everyone tells me how 30 is like such a pivotal age for being a human being, basically. And I have a lot of friends who are past their 30s or have lived through their 30s, and everyone has been telling me to just enjoy it. So I feel like it's something that I'm really looking forward to in terms of just being more comfortable with myself and also just learning more about what I really don't want and what I really want out of life. I think that pretty much that's like how I feel about it, and I'm really looking forward to it. It's not something that I kind of feel bogged down about, although people always say like, 30, like you're in your third decade, and yeah, that's basically it. Like it's an age is just a number basically. So yeah, but I do feel a bit older because like my back hurts, my head hurts if I don't get enough sleep. It's very much like granny vibes, but I'm here for it. So next one is, what is your resolution for 2023? How are you keeping that promise to yourself top of mind for all 365 days? That's really tough because I don't really have resolutions per se, but I do know one thing that I really want to make happen, or like one thing I really resolve. That's what how resolutions are, right? I really want to do this year is to make myself less available. And I'm not putting that in a bad light. It's just that I feel like for the entirety of my life during my 20s, I've given myself so much to other people that I've lost touch with myself. And also I feel like I spend so much time caring about other people, and to be honest, like it's not always like I get the same treatment in return. So it's good to be nice, it's good to be kind, but I feel like I want to put my energy into the people that really matter in my life in general. So that's something I want to do. And at the same time, I feel like I have to really look after myself more than I used to in the past because, well, I am my own person, and I always forget this is like my main character thing. Like everyone is their own main character, and I want to be able to give myself that, especially now that I'm entering a new decade. What are you looking forward to this 2023? So many things, but I think primarily it will be traveling a lot more and also working on projects that will fill me up instead of make me feel empty. Because for the past few years, I feel like the work that I've been doing, yes, it's like necessary work, it's good work, but it didn't feel like it filled me up. It was always like an output situation, and I guess it came to a point where I felt like I really needed something to fill my own creative cup. So this year I am promising myself to really invest more time and energy into projects like that and creative work. I'm also looking forward to exploring new things in terms of work, like not just on YouTube, but also Instagram, possibly streaming, and other different ways that I can inspire the creative community and basically like be on the internet. When you travel, do you plan ahead or plan as you go? Is journaling always required when you travel? Oh, this is a good question because I feel like since I started traveling extensively in my early 20s, the first time I traveled alone was in Singapore. I was 21, and at the time I didn't really know what journaling was. I just documented a lot of the things that have happened during the time that I was there, and traveling itself really opened me up to so many different ways of seeing the world, discovering myself, and seeing how everything sort of connects. And eventually throughout the years, it has been a really important part of my creative career. Like I always travel before working on a deadline. It's always like part of the plan. Like I think for like 3 years I was just like working on books, but also in the middle of working on books, I would actually go to Japan to get inspiration. And that also really inspired me to sort of incorporate travel as a part of my creative process. With travel in general, in latter years, you know, since the pandemic happened, after the pandemic, when I started traveling more, it started to feel like it just couldn't be something that I just do because I wanted to go to 10 places in one go. It became more of a way for me to recharge and also to put myself in a new environment. So as much as I plan a lot, I do plan ahead. Like stuff like, you know, flights and hotels and like itineraries for sure. But I try to be more loose this time. When I was younger, I think I was more rigid. Like I have to go to like 4 key places. But I try to think now of travel as like a slow activity where I just see things as I go and I manage my energy, because some days you will feel really tired because you're like just taking everything in when you're seeing a place for the first time, exploring a city for the first time. It's always like, wow, there's like so many things happening, and you just get really tired because your brain is processing so much images, so much information right in front of you. So yeah, I just do now is like I plan as I go, but also I have like stuff that I really wanna set in stone. Usually what I do now is I actually plan like few days beforehand, like okay, on Tuesday, if I can go to this, I'll do it. But if not, I will just like not force it, especially when I'm traveling alone. About journaling, if it's always required, I guess it depends on the travel goals. So for example, if I'm traveling with someone who doesn't really want to sit down at a cafe, I have to sort of make a compromise and maybe just do journaling at a hotel after the trip ends. It's also something that I consider when I am on a family trip. I can't just like say I'm gonna spend the morning at a coffee shop. So it's also why I prefer traveling alone, because it allows me to just manage my own time. So journaling is not always required unless it's a really long trip. Like for me, going to the US or like doing a full-on Euro trip is something that I really document about because it takes time and it's something I really want to remember in my travel memories. What have you learned about yourself as a person and as a business owner since starting your business? I have learned many things, but one thing that I really learned about myself is if I want something, I really find a way to get it. And it's usually coupled with hard work and like struggling and really like putting myself in uncomfortable positions to get to that point. But I think that's the Capricorn in me speaking. And also because I know that the only person who can save myself or save my business is myself. So I really have to always find a way to stay afloat and be 10 steps ahead. So I learned that I'm pretty much resilient in that regard, and I'm also very resourceful. I also have finally acknowledged that I work really hard, because sometimes I feel like I don't work enough because the internet tells you otherwise. But then again, I've worked so many different things in the past, like probably 7 years, that I keep telling myself I probably maxed myself out already. So I did learn that, and also how much I really dedicate so much of myself to the work I do, because growing up, I wasn't really conditioned to become who I am today. And sometimes I'm still in disbelief that this is actually my job. And it took me so many years to finally figure out that, yes, what I did was something I really was meant to do. And I really took that step by quitting my job, taking on the first book, you know, working on subsequent books, and everything else that I've achieved in my 20s. I feel like it wouldn't have been possible for me to be here if I weren't that kind of person. But also I feel like it's a double-edged sword, because then I feel like I've maxed myself out in that regard, and I'm still feeling the after effects of it. So I'm slowly like getting into the point where I try to like learn from it and not be so focused on work and so invested into like getting that one thing. Because as sad as it is, like you would always like, I want to do this big thing, and then when it happens, I don't know, I just feel empty sometimes. And it's not something that I force upon myself. It's just something that just innately happens. So I want to be able to change that. What are the top 3 tips or lessons you've learned that you'd like to give to someone who wants to move and live their life in another country this year? Wow, very tough question. But for context, I moved to Berlin, my dream city, in February 2022. So it's been almost a year since I moved to a new city, completely different from where I grew up. I grew up in Manila and I grew up in Southeast Asia, and I'm currently based in Europe now for the rest of my year and the next few years and in the future. I guess like top three, number one is root for yourself every day. I cannot stress this enough because the first few months I was in Berlin, I kept negating this. I'm like, oh yeah, this is not gonna work. I can just go home, and this is not happening. I can't deal with this. Even if I knew that everything was already right in front of me. I got my permit, I got the go signal to stay in Berlin, and I finally found friends and stuff. It just felt hard because I wasn't even rooting for myself. So that's the first thing, root for yourself every day. Second is always ask questions, because I have been conditioned to be very independent as a person. Like, I never rely on anyone else. I think that comes from me being a business owner and having to solve my own problems that no one else will understand. But the one thing that I really learned from moving and living in a new city is you have to ask questions. I live in a city where I'm not even fluent in German. And while I can read German, it's still not necessary. It's not enough to like survive there fully. And sometimes the best thing is just calling up your best friend and asking for like a translation of the German letter that you got in the mail, or just asking around like, do you know anyone who is going to sublet their flat for like the next 2 weeks? Or even like going to a train station and asking like, where's the actual direction for where you're going to go. I always feel like asking questions makes people feel like they're burdened with me. I don't like burdening people, so I thought it wasn't something that I needed to do until I realized that people actually wanted to help me. I remember when I posted like a really long post in March, I think, on Patreon about why I moved to Berlin, and I think like 5 people reached out to me on my direct messages and decided to give me some leads and help me out. And that was really, it made me feel really at ease because I didn't feel alone. It was just like something that I did. And now they're most of them are like my really close friends. So I'm really grateful for that platform and for just putting that out there, because I didn't know I needed help until I did. And I think in that regard, it also ties into like mental health reasons. Like if you really feel like you need to consult with a therapist or like just deal with your mental health, it's going to take a toll on you. Especially when I moved, it was really difficult with all the uncertainty happening. The third lesson is to just take each day as it comes. I feel like with me personally, when I've been waiting to move to Berlin for like 3 years because of the pandemic, and then when it happened, I couldn't like process it in my brain. And when I finished like one big task, I always think of the next big task, and then you're always just like bombarding yourself with all the things you have to do, that I really failed to just enjoy what I have and what I've achieved. I think there was this one moment in the summer I was walking around the park and I was like, damn, you did the thing. You did it. You're here. You're walking and you're in this city, and you're like, you have a life here, and this is something that you won't realize until you've lived long enough in that city to understand. Like you've grown accustomed to how the train works, the friends you meet, your favorite bakery, your favorite coffee order, and these are things that really help me sort of come into full circle with my life as a Berliner and the coming months and like my life basically for the next few years. In your creative career, what was the hardest thing to adjust to? Honestly, the hardest thing that I had to adjust to, at first I thought it was the time management problem, but I realized that I can actually fix my time, that it works for me. I think number one would be the work-life balance. I'm still like working that out. That's my main goal also this year, to like achieve a more proper work-life balance. Honestly, the hardest one that I had to adjust to was the rising. You know how like I started to put out this book, the first book I came out with in 2015, and I shot to fame immediately, and people started knowing my name, and it kind of scared me because I guess people who want to be like celebrities and stuff, they've been groomed to to have a certain way of like dealing with fame and stuff. But I'm just like I call myself like, this is like the Hannah Montana energy, where it's like I feel like I am channeling a different version of myself, even if I'm still the same person. But like at the end of the day, I'm just this normal adult living her adult life and dealing with stuff, who has a job like this, not so normal job, but like still has a job, you know, and doing the thing, like being a full-on adult. And it was really hard. It still is hard. I'm as I got older, I think I learned to deal it in a way that it's just there. I never really like give so much time and energy with it, but it makes me feel very conscious of myself in general. And it also ties in with the 8th question, which is, if you could choose one thing from your career that you'd like to take out, what is it and why? Honestly, if I could take out the fame bit, that would be really great. But also I can't, because then you guys wouldn't be able to find me, and you know, it wouldn't really work. It's really a component of this entire creative career. But I just feel like sometimes I feel like I'm in Hunger Games where people are watching me. It's like in the arena, and like it just feels a bit daunting to feel that. It's like, I know for people it's like, wow, you have like 100,000 followers on Instagram. Part of me is like, there's 100,000 people watching me on the internet. And so that bit has always scared me. But I know I can't take it out. But if there's another thing that I'd like to take out, maybe it would be just having to deal with people who don't really like what I do, because I just wish they could just be quiet about it, but then people always have something to say. They don't know how much it affects creators like us. And I just try to be in a headspace where I just don't worry about it. But also, like, I am well aware that I can't serve everyone, and I can't make everyone happy. So I just wish like you could, like, if there's a way that could take something out, like take a fishbone out, that would be something that I'd take out, like all the haters or all the people. Like, as Taylor Swift said, haters gonna hate, hate, hate. So yeah. What's your theme for 2023? It's very much different from the themes I used to have in 2021. Oh, in 2020 I had trust. 2021 I had focus. 2022 I had ease and align. For 2023, it was inspired by this song of Monsters and Men. It's entitled Slow and Steady. So it's slow and steady. That's my whole theme. Those are my words for the year. I try to like jumble stuff up with like words and themes, but it's very important to me because I have always lived on the fast lane in terms of my career and excelling to the next thing and moving forward, because I've had this inherent fear that I'm not gonna last. I think it's brought up by this idea that growing up I wasn't given appreciation for all the things I do. I'm not like those like people who just are naturally good at something. I draw, but that's it. It wasn't like something I felt very good at. So moving towards my career, where I felt like, oh, I was actually good at like this, and then I honed another skill, and now I'm like good at 5 different things, and it still made no sense to me how these things all contribute to the bigger picture. And because I do know how to do so many different things in this creative realm, it's become different for me and difficult for me to accept that, number one, I can't do everything. Number two, no one is asking you to do it now. Like, there's no deadline. You set the rules. But I just became such a machine to myself. Like, I forced myself to work that much. For what purpose, right? So that's something. The second thing about being steady is just like being at a pace where I don't feel very compelled to be at my 100% in terms of my job, because it's not sustainable. You know, there's the saying with like the tortoise and the hare. It's a Chinese anecdote, I think. It's a Chinese fable where slow and steady wins the race. So people always think that being slow in a fast-paced world is something looked down upon, but actually I feel like it's something that should be celebrated, because these are the people who really take their time. If you take your time doing things, my mom always says that, because like I always in a hurry, and she always calls me out, and I just realized if you take your time doing things, no, there's time. I keep thinking time is such a very it is a valuable currency, but then it always makes me feel like I never have enough time. But then if I try to rephrase things and say like, I will make time, then it changes the narrative. So I guess that's my overall theme this year. Just want to take things very slow. I feel like I rushed myself into the finish line with like, because I was like, okay, the one big thing I want to do next for my career was move to a new city. And I've done that. And now I'm still like slowly easing myself into it. So I want to be at that pace and also explore more as a creator. What else can I create? What else can I do that really fills up my creative energy? And so that's gonna be my theme for the rest of the year. Hopefully I keep it. I think I'm gonna keep it up. I have someone accountable who's gonna help me do that. So I'm very excited about it. So that's it for this very introspective Q&A. I've never done these in a while actually. So I do hope you enjoyed it. And if you have more questions, I actually have a full-on like podcast episode on Patreon monthly starting this January, where I talk about stuff basically. But starting February, it's going to be an interview with people I really love and have contributed to my creative journey. But this January, I have something about thoughts on turning 30. So it's entitled Road to Closure. Very fancy term. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you online and in future videos. Make sure to subscribe and also check out my other videos on journaling if you're into that, or like just travel in general. Thank you so much. Always be creating, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye!